Hey everybody, welcome back to No Sewing Until You Quilt It with Ann and Rachel. We're still working on our Bird of Paradise stained glass, modified stained glass into a queen size quilt. We're almost done with this middle panel. We're working on this last flower right here and this last petals, last leaves. So we got to the point in the middle, our color scheme is different than it was in glass. So we were trying to decide what we were gonna do to tie these orange and yellows in with our more white flowers. So we decided on these two fabrics, these two yellows, but because we decided to go with two fabrics and there are 5 petals, we're gonna redesign this piece right here, 192, and split it into 2 so that we have an even number of each color of fabric. So a way to do that is to use just a piece of plastic. This I think is an old Ziploc bag cut in 2, and redraw your piece. You can see here where we've used this piece of plastic multiple times before to either redraw a piece or if we've lost one. I went ahead and drew out the shape of this 192. So you can see it here outlined in Sharpie. This dark line here, and we're gonna, to make it into 2 pieces, we're just gonna kind of, because all of these are arched up this way, we're gonna keep with that shape, and let's just go like that. And then 192 plus, so we know what we're working with. Now from here, if you have, we have a white design table, so we often just place it on the table. If not, you can just put a piece of white paper behind your copy. So this is white paper, so I can see it, the plastic and freezer paper, shiny side down, the freezer paper side down. And you can see here, you can see through, so I'm just gonna reshape or redraw the shape. And it seems crazy to have all of these curves like this, but with No Sewing Until You Quilt It, we can make our fabric match all of these small curves. So now I'll cut these apart and we'll iron them to our fabric and just proceed like we would with any other No Sewing Until You Quilt It project. Last but not least.
Yay! Okay, folks, there we are. Now we're going to take a big iron and give it a final pressing.
And with the big iron for pressing, you want to make sure you're not rubbing it back and forth like you would a shirt or something like that, because there are small pieces and nothing's sewn yet, and so you don't want the edge of your iron to catch your pieces and pull them up. So just kind of tap it down.
All right, we've noticed after we put this together that this is very light. It reads very light, and there's not very much contrast between our flowers and our background here. So we've decided to replace that piece with this, which will give us a little more contrast. So as we've done so many times, we just want to show you again, you don't have to be afraid of editing your piece. We took a piece of clear plastic bag that was cut open and traced it. And then I put a few tick marks here, just so that there's some points here that I can line up with a couple of places. Okay, because this design is pretty intricate, I don't want this to slide around on me, so I'm just taping it to the table. And remember, if you don't have a white surface to do this tracing, you can just put a piece of white computer paper underneath this plastic. You just want this to show up. And then I'm going to tape my piece of freezer paper here too, just so that doesn't move. but this is a skinny little scrap of freezer paper. You just have to make sure, eyeball it, that everything is covered. We add our seam allowances with our magic button once this is ironed to the fabric. All right, so this is our new pattern piece, and we're just going to check on how that fits in there. I think it'll be fine. Our 1/4 inch seam allowance that we're going to add gives us a little fudge factor room, so we cut this out. I'm going to use the Magic Button 2.0 to do it because these are kind of intricate little pieces to cut. I make sure that this is pressed. Don't just go over it quickly. You want to be able to make sure that the freezer paper is well attached to the fabric because it acts as a stabilizer until we have those pieces turned or underneath those other pieces. So now we're ready to put this piece in there. So what we're going to do, you can feel that this part is over the top of that one, but everything else is underneath. So what we want to do is just don't rip these all out. We just want to pull it up. Okay, that is over the top. So we'll just turn that. Okay, so now we're just going to gently pull that piece out. You can hear it kind of rip up. All right, there's our throwaway piece. And now we have our new piece. So what we have to do for most of this is just put glue stick on that edge because everything else is turned. It's just this piece right here that we need to turn under. That part is on top. I don't know why we did that, but that's what we did. So we're gonna only have to turn that inside piece to about there. I like putting little notches in here so I can see. And that goes under there, so that's good. So you use your fresh glue stick with the baby wipe here. And we're going to turn that. Just that one area that needs to be turned. So you can see all of these pieces were turned. And that's what we're going to lift up and then stick the raw edges of this in there. But we're going to put glue stick on those raw edges here because everything else will come to the top. I'm generous with that glue because remember, the glue stick is what's holding the seam allowances together until after it's stitched and quilted. So I'm just going to make sure I got all that covered. And then we very carefully slip that in there. It has to be fiddled around a little bit. See, you can hold those, fold those back to see how they fit in there. There's a lot of different sides to this, so just pull that up a little more there. These turn back edges are a guide, so you want to have that, you know, on those lines. So just take it easy. See how that's going to lay down in there? And this is over the top. This is underneath here. We may have, no, it's pretty good. I was thinking maybe we have to slide it down a little bit because until it's fused down, you still have a little room to adjust this. It's not exactly perfect, but because of the seam allowance that we added, it does give you a little fudge factor room. So all right, so now we like the way that's fitting in there. So now we're gonna glue the back side of these turned edges and get that all glued down. So we think we've got this glued down here. We picked up our paper because we didn't want to glue the paper under this one leaf because that didn't quite line up. But anyway, we want to press that now. We could use the big iron now because we use the small iron when we're building. But this was right in the middle of all these pieces that are done. So we wanted to press that down real well. And now we can remove the rest of this paper. You want to be careful when you pull the paper off too. I like to support it. So there, what do you think? I think that's a little better rather than having that white hole in the center. And then I'm just going to give it one final pressing. All right, after a second look at our center panel, we decided that this piece kind of disappears too. There's just not enough contrast. So I'm using the same fabric, but we're going to place our pattern on an area that has more detail. So this will stand out from our background. So this is the little piece that we just changed, just so there's a little more detail in the fabric to help it stand out a little bit.